replace them with simply rookies. Like, I know they've got 2 first-round picks. That's nice. You can use one on a wide receiver. But I think you have to surround Aaron Rodgers with veterans. And they're already like Adrian Amos, their safety, saying Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, come to Green Bay. I like the idea of surrounding Rodgers with known quantities that he can trust. Do you think a rookie wants to deal with an annoyed Aaron Rodgers, like right out of the gate? I don't think so.
Can I share the one part of the story that isn't adding up?
Okay.
Okay, we're told, Rap Sheet reports, that Aaron Rodgers, during his negotiation, was told Davante Adams not coming back, okay? However, then we're told that the Packers were willing to offer more money than the Raiders. So how are they telling him definitively that he's not coming back, but then offering him more money than any wide receiver has ever gotten? Something seems to be a little off in the messaging.
They must just have understood that Davante Adams, who's been messaging for over a year that he wants to go win his career to Vegas and play with Derek Carr, this just wasn't going to happen.
Instead of Aaron Rodgers. I don't judge a man. Whatever he wants to do, he wants to be in Vegas. He wants to play with his Fresno State guy. He wants to be in his house that Mark knows so much about. That's cool.
I don't know that much about it.
He's like on Zillow, Googling.
But it's just kind of surprising, let's face it.
I just can imagine Derek Carr, though, backing up from center on 3rd down and having the choice. Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, or Davante Adams, 3 of the very best guys getting open quickly off the line of scrimmage on money downs with a guy in Josh McDaniels who I think is one of the best play callers in the NFL over the last 20 years. I'm excited to watch the Raiders. It's been a while.
I am too, but I think sometimes
No, you're not.
No, when you pay you pay a wide receiver who's turning 30 this kind of money, you have to hope a little bit with the history of wide receivers past age 30.
But have you seen even the smallest bit of decline by Davante Adams?
But it's
a 3-year deal. I have no problem with that.
I love you, but let's get off the fence here. You can't say the Packers made a huge mistake here letting this man go and then saying, well, he's 30 now, so he might not be worth the money.
I'm just saying
what are you saying?
The contract is enormous,
so
and we'll see how it
Raiders.
goes.
Let's transition. Let's move away.
This wide shot is just concerning.
I don't know what's going on. Deshaun Watson. Why is this still going on? It's driving me crazy. It ruined my St. Patrick's Day. The Falcons and Saints are the 2 remaining trade destinations for Deshaun Watson, according to Rap Sheet. And that means a bunch of other teams that were interested in him, the Carolina Panthers, the Cleveland Browns, the Seattle Seahawks, all out of the mix. So now it just comes down to, Mark, who does Deshaun Watson choose in this red carpet, magic carpet ride for Deshaun Watson? It all feels off, but here we are from a football sense. He's boiling it down to 2 teams. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, he might be on a carpet. We're not. This has been a downer of a news story. You know, the Falcons came into this later, and it seems like from what we're hearing that Atlanta has gone very full distance to try to show Deshaun Watson, we support you, we embrace you. I don't know what you're telling Falcons fans or what the Saints people plan to tell their fans, depending on what team he picks. I think this is a really awkward story for the fact that you have to pivot around and try to sell this to pockets of your fan base that are going to ditch teams they've been following their entire life.
It's just been so shameless. Can you imagine Ben Roethlisberger when he was facing the Chargers and ultimately a suspension, meeting with multiple teams who are willing to offer guaranteed years and 3 years? No, actually, if you go back to my old site, Pro Football Talk, and read the reports, the Steelers were trying to trade him and no one wanted him, and it's been a very different situation. It's been shameless. It's been disappointing and all that. The thing that I miss about the coverage is that he's going to be suspended. Like, can you imagine if a college player was coming out with these sort of charges and the character concerns that they would throw on, and instead it's a guy that you're giving up those picks and you're willing to take the suspension? Like, miss me with the whole, like, Saints culture. The Falcons are getting rid of one of the most important players in their franchise history, Matt Ryan, to go after this guy.
Well, they're looking at I'm guessing these teams are looking at the long game here, that yes, we'll take the suspension because we're going to have a 26-year-old superstar quarterback, hopefully for the next decade or so. And that even ties into the fact that you're giving up in this trade potentially 3 first-round picks. And what does that mean for your short term in terms of viability as a contender? The Falcons are going to be a mess if they trade away. They already stink right now. So maybe they're looking at, we'll take the bumps and bruises for a couple of years, we'll reset everything, and then away we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially the Saints were the landing spot that he would have viewed as team-wise in terms of a football roster, the more attractive landing spot. But I mean, to me, the Falcons, you take away 3 first-round picks and look at where that roster is right now. They just lost Russell Gage. What is surrounding Deshaun Watson when he comes out of a suspension?
Right, Watson has a history in Atlanta, grew up 50 miles outside of Atlanta, and has a relationship with Arthur Blank. But if you think this week has been ugly and the coverage has been ugly, and this is the time to talk about it too, because eventually we're going to switch to the football of it all. We'll have no choice. Imagine if they stink and Deshaun Watson is your quarterback. There'll be some repercussions then. You'll be a laughingstock.
Yeah, and I don't think they will, because I think he is that good. They might stink initially, but I think he's that special, and that's why it's been so shameless, because these teams understand that. One last thought. Matt Ryan is one of the greatest Falcons quarterback of all time, the most decorated of all time, a former MVP. Not a lot of talk about how there's been so much talk about Baker, who we're about to get to, being disrespected. Matt Ryan is basically
another level.
Kicked out the door here, a guy that's done everything for your franchise for 13 years or so, 15 years.
Teams don't care. I mean, this is just,
not at all.
They care about winning. They care about money. I don't want to hear anything about the off-field and character.
Maybe Matt Ryan's being quiet right now because he's like, get me out of here.
That's a fair point.
Speaking of get me out of here, Baker Mayfield wants out of Cleveland because he doesn't like it. He doesn't like that the Browns are going after Deshaun Watson. Watson's like, no, I'm not going to Cleveland. And then they pivot back and say, okay, let's get Baker back in the fold. And Baker says, no, trade me, please. The Browns then, Mark, they say, no, we do not want to accommodate that request. So now we're in this awkward standoff. It is National Awkward Day, and that's exactly what this situation is.
Well, it's a perfect day for that. I mean, how this love affair turns so ugly. Like, have you ever been through a breakup? Yes, the person starts as the sun, then they end up as the moon crashing into your house and your workplace. And that's where we are with Baker Mayfield and the Browns right now. A total
is that in play
disaster.
here?
So
is it possible the
moon
crashes?
You had a breakup where the sun and the moon crashed into your workplace?
I am just saying that things get ugly and they get Titanic and they get bad. And I cannot, as a lifelong Browns fan, where we were with Baker Mayfield and this team a couple years ago and where we are today, these things just end so poorly. And I get why Baker Mayfield wants out. I also think Baker Mayfield kind of shows who he is with how he's responded to all of this as well, compared to quarterback X. But they should have known who Baker Mayfield is when they went out and chased a different quarterback.
Right, and all of that makes sense to me. It makes sense that he hasn't been the most popular leader necessarily. And yet, if he could play, as Dan said, he could play the guitar at a highly proficient level, I don't think we're having this conversation. The football aspect of it is what interests me with him, because I think he's an interesting quarterback. He throws a beautiful ball. If he sees the pass and he can line it up, he's up there with one of the better, more accurate quarterbacks in the league, and yet I just don't think he processes fast enough. I don't think he sees the field. I don't think he's who Kevin Stefanski wants, and that's why this whole, we're not going to accommodate his request. Let's see the plane. Let's send the plane down to Cleveland. Like, what? You don't really want this guy, do you?
I will think about the flashpoint of the Baker Mayfield career arc was taking the ball, Arrowhead, down 5 points, with a chance to go steal that game from Kansas City in the playoffs last year. Didn't work out, and everything's kind of been downhill since then. But the biggest story, I think,
great
is
in that game, though.
I've seen plenty of movies. I saw a Ben Affleck picture about asteroids heading towards Earth. I'm not.
Good for you.
I didn't know the moon was in play here.
I mean, I just threw that out there.
Okay.
It's like if the moon crashing into our Earth would be pretty bad. And that's how breakups feel sometimes.
Okay. We are just getting started here on the broadcast.
Who hurt you, Mark? Who did it?
Who didn't?
Coming up next, we're going to spin through all the divisions and get caught up on where every team is. That's why it's called Around the NFL. First, the AFC West and NFC West. Here we go. The 2022 NFL Draft kicks off April 28th on NFL Network, and we've got Pro Day coverage live all next week. Catch Pitt QB Kenny Pickett Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Liberty QB Malik, big moment for Liberty. Malik Willis will throw it around Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Ole Miss QB Matt Corral will work out Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. All live here on NFL Network.
But we're here for one thing, and it's to win. It's to win at the highest level often. And I'm excited about it. And I'm excited about the journey. And Broncos country, let's ride.
Well, it wouldn't make any sense for Russell Wilson to say, go Hawks. So he has to come up with something new. How do we feel about let's ride?
Are we sure that he's sticking with that? I don't feel good about it. I do not feel good about let's ride.
I mean, I think he's talking about riding a Bronco,
right now,
around the field.
I get it.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds me of those Instagram stories he would send out with Ciara when he signs the contract. There's always a whole vibe of excitement when it comes to Russell
I
Wilson.
imagine there was an entire boardroom filled with human beings who were tasked with coming up with this for Russ. And he was sitting at the top of the table.
I like it better than Go Hawks.
Because remember, there's the guy on the Bronco riding across the field. That's a big Denver thing.
That's what I'm referencing. That gentleman on the horse.
That's rad.
All right. ATN rolls on. Let's talk AFC West. Let's talk Denver Broncos.
I am fascinated by this team, not just because you add Russell Wilson to all the great talent around him. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy. When you heard Russell Wilson talking about all his new players that he's going to be throwing to, it's kind of like, those guys are crazy. Now he's the old guy. It was like these young whippersnappers. Jerry Jeudy's got a personality on him, too, and they're all in their young 20s, and he's going to have to kind of show that he can spread the ball around and improve them, and I don't see why not. They now have a legitimate quarterback to unlock them, and he's got great players around.
I mean, we've been waiting on this offense for 2 seasons now. It was let's blame it on Drew Lock. Teddy Bridgewater gets you halfway there, but not totally there. There are no excuses now, and I know, Greg, you've been a little down on who Russell Wilson might be at this stage in his career. I think we're going to get a driven, high-octane version of Russell Wilson who succeeds in this offense. And you know what? He turned down the Commanders. He could have gone to the NFC East and sailed through that division. He's taking on the challenge of going to the AFC West. He believes in the weapons around him. And I think the secret sauce is Nathaniel Hackett, who is this totally strange, lovable genius to me, based on the news conference and everything else we've seen.
We talk about it on the show all the time. Winning an MVP, it's about putting up big numbers, but it's also about having a nice storyline connected to you. I think Russ throws for close to 40 touchdowns next year. I think he throws for well over 4,000 yards. And I think he's a great story because of the mega trade, and the Broncos are a playoff team. Look out. This could be the MVP season, Greggy.
He is up and down with his athleticism, I think, at this stage of his career, and he relies so much on creativity and making plays after holding the ball for 3 seconds. It's a fine line to draw at age 32.
All right, let's get to the Chargers, who obviously have a really active free agency week. J.C. Jackson is a huge pickup for that team. Khalil Mack, a huge pickup for that team. And they're saying we're getting all in, Mark, on this arms race.
What I love about it is, it's not just let's go get Khalil Mack. Brandon Staley knows Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack believes in Brandon Staley. He's going to know how to unleash him, how to use him. And I think that kind of fell off a little bit in Chicago at the very end there. I love the addition for the Chargers. And all along, they've also helped the run defense out with some guys they added. They were 26 in DVOA on defense last year. That was not what Brandon Staley went there to do. You still have Justin Herbert on a rookie contract. It is the time now to spend money and get rolling.
My son was a huge J.C. Jackson fan when he found out that J.C. Jackson's going to the Chargers. He said he's going to be a Chargers fan, like I think most of sports media. I'm in on this Chargers team. Mike Williams is back. They're just going to be fun. I even like the Sebastian Joseph Day signing because Staley knows him from his time with the Rams. All these signings, there's a lot of comfort level to me, and I don't think they can miss. Never. The Chargers never miss.
I was just going to say, that's the only thing to keep an eye on here. The Chargers are a star-crossed franchise. Everyone in the football cognoscenti is very excited about this. That's usually when things go wrong. We'll see. The other move I just want to mention with the Raiders as well. We talked about Davante Adams at the top of the show. They also got Chandler Jones. I really like that the Raiders looked around the division and said, we're not going to sit this out. We're going to toe-to-toe with all these other superpowers. It's going to be an amazing season watching these teams fight it out. And as you pointed out on the podcast, Greg, the AFC West plays the NFC West this year in interconference play. That is fun. Speaking.
What, up next?
That's
What a tease.
Good job.
NFC West. The defending champion Rams, they are active. They always are. Allen Robinson joins the fray. So you got Cooper Kupp in there. Now you got Allen Robinson, a huge pickup. Now Andrew Whitworth retired, the great left tackle, but also Von Miller exits the picture as well. So on balance, do you think the Rams are a better team right now, Mark, or worse?
You know what? I have so much trust in them in this point. I think when you have a great GM, he finds a way at this time of year to stun football observers. And I think that the acquisition of Allen Robinson is another example of the Rams heat-seeking what they want and getting it. I love pairing Allen Robinson, who essentially was ignored in Chicago a year ago. He still has ability. You pair him in with Cooper Kupp. You still have other guys there that still have interest in Odell Beckham. They are running it back in a different way than they talked about during the drunken Super Bowl parade, but they're doing it their way.
Right. I don't think you can run it back. And certainly with Whitworth retiring, it wasn't going to happen. Robinson's a very different player, and I like the element that he can bring vertically and in the red zone to this offense. But he's not Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp. He's not going to be out there kind of as a second tight end blocking and everything. Robert Woods reportedly could be traded here, but I love that they lose Von Miller, and they wanted to keep him, and that money has to go somewhere. So Les Snead just goes like right down my top 101 list. That's the kind of influence I have. It's like, who's the next
one way to look
best
at it.
player available? It's Allen Robinson. Let's sign him because cap space, they never built a monument to cap space. Let's spend that cap space.
Greg lives in an interesting reality, apparently,
Yeah.
thinking that NFL GMs are scanning his NFL.com article.
I'm pretty sure that's like how it works.
The team that very nearly beat the Rams in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl was the Niners. Jimmy G's still there. So I'm throwing it out there. He's still in that building. All quiet on the Kyler Murray front.
No one wants. I mean, they're waiting it out, right? Because
he can't throw till July. And it's like there are teams out there that need quarterbacks. I think he has a market. It's just he wasn't the first guy to go.
They've been a little quiet. They signed Charvarius Ward, which I think was a good signing in the secondary. But they are keeping that Jimmy G contract on the book, so that is preventing them from spending any money elsewhere. But I think they're waiting to see the Colts, the Browns, what shakes out, and eventually maybe you get a third or fourth round pick for him.
Finally, Mark, how weird is it to see Baker Mayfield in a Seahawks uniform come September?
It's weird, but I kind of like the fit for Baker Mayfield. Of all the places you could go, if it wound up being Seattle, kind of fits with that vibe.
Are you going to be a Baker fan for life? I feel like you will be.
I've been thrown into my fandom has just been thrown into the blender at this point. I don't know what's gonna when they bake that cake. I don't know what's.
You were a huge Bernie Kosar fan on the Miami Dolphins, so this would track.
Yeah, I tend to when I sign up to someone, I stick with them to some degree.
Unlike that woman that apparently had the moon crash into.
Who, the moon crash?
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to go back to that.
Her name was Moon Crash. All right, let's move. Sometimes you gotta move. This is a perfect example. Up next, AFC East and NFC East. Yes, Von Miller joins a superpower in Western New York. Yes, there's a Western power. There's a Western superpower. What? We'll be back. Welcome back. We're going around the league after the first week of free agency. So much to hit. Let's now move to the AFC East, a division, boys, that is powered right now, led by the Buffalo Bills, and they made a big splash, Greg, acquiring one of the best defensive players of this generation.
I like it because I think they make so many other smart moves that are low cost, like good value deals that they can splurge here and there with Von Miller. The 6 years for 120 got all the attention, and I get it. It's 3 for 53 ultimately. A lot of guaranteed money still for a 32-year-old, but that's
33.
more sensible. It's the same money that Chandler Jones got, Harold Landry, more or less, and he's what they need. And they've shown that they can coach up aging pass rushers like Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. Von Miller is a better version of those guys.
It's how I feel about Brandon Staley and the Chargers with Sean McDermott and defensive players that he picks up. You trust they're going to be used well. And this is a team, if you look at the real contract, it addresses well while they're in this Super Bowl window. And this is not a team thinking they're in a Super Bowl window. They really are. It's wide enough. You could fit multiple people through that window. It's real. It's happening in the AFC East right now. And the Bills are saying, we're going for it. And I like
Bay
that.
window. Yes, there is that. They still can't believe they lost that game to the Chiefs. They had, I hate win probability, but I'm sure it was in the high 90s after they went ahead in the final minutes at Arrowhead. They lost, but they still probably came out of that season, I can guarantee you, thinking to themselves, we were the best team in the AFC. We're going to find a way to get over the hump. Now, the Patriots, Greg, are a team that once used to be the leaders of the AFC East. The Bills spanked them right on the hiney twice at the end of the regular season and then in the playoffs.
Who are you?
I am a father of two young boys. Well, yes, just stay with it. So now where are the Patriots? Are the Patriots getting better? That's the question. I mean, they trade Shaq Mason. They lose J.C. Jackson, let him walk out of the building. Great cornerback. You're nervous as a Pats fan.
They do this a lot, where the first week of free agency, it's like you got to do the winners and losers, and the Patriots are the losers. And then about a month later, they've added a bunch of players, and that's what'll happen here. So I took them off my loser list, but I got to admit, this has been pretty uninspiring. It's like, hey, let's bring back all our old friends, James White and Matthew Slater and Devin McCourty. And it's like, I love all those guys too, but how about we freshen it up here? Because the defense was the problem. They still haven't gotten a stop against Josh Allen.
It's almost as if all those older players are like, hey, we've got kids in local Massachusetts area schools. Can you please keep us around for one more year? My name's Brian Hoyer. And the Patriots are like, look at us. We've got 5 people on our coaching staff. We're so much smarter than you. At some point, the floor falls out. I think the big problem is, are you keeping up with Buffalo if you're the Patriots? I don't think you are.
I'm just imagining Bill Belichick, who Mark famously sent letters to as a kid, putting on the old Around the NFL broadcast in Foxborough this afternoon and being like, oh, I've lost Sessler. I'm really in trouble now.
Everything turns evil in this league, apparently. So. And
then there's the New York Jets. Listen to these names: Tyler Conklin, C.J. Uzomah, Jordan Whitehead, D.J. Reed, Laken Tomlinson. I understand these are not the top of the market guys, but I like what Joe Douglas has done here. He's efficiently patched a lot of holes on a roster that needs a lot of help. That said, for a guy that's job is in danger, you would think, Douglas, if they don't show real progress, it's interesting to me that he didn't go all out here, and he's putting everything really, and a lot, I should say, into this draft. He's got to hit this draft because these signings make them better, but these are not signings to me that are going to take them 2 steps up.
It reminds me of what the Bengals have done in free agency, which is go after the mid-tier guys. Maybe that's where the value is in free agency. These guys are going to start. I love DJ Reed. Laken Tomlinson is a plug-and-play quality guard. I think the moves they've made have made a lot of sense. I hate to give the Jets so much credit, but I think this has been one of their better off seasons.
Well, I mean, the Bengals also went to the Super Bowl in year 2 of Joe Burrow, which just emphasizes that no matter what pieces you add, Zach Wilson is under immense pressure to completely flip the switch.
That's the, not to oversimplify it, but everyone's job is connected to the kid quarterback stepping up in year 2. We'll see if he can do it. See if he can play the guitar, Greggy. Let's move to the NFC East, a division led by the Cowboys last season before they bombed out in the playoffs. So now they're trying to get better, but they're also trying to get more flexible financially. Amari Cooper traded to the Browns. Michael Gallup, a long-term deal.
I like the Gallup contract, but they're one of those teams that can't say they're better. I mean, how could they be better? They've lost good players. They did a nice job keeping DeMarcus Lawrence. They've been limited by the salary cap, unlike some teams like the Saints who have just gotten ultra creative. They've lost a couple offensive linemen and Connor Williams and Lyle Collins. They had to cut. I rarely see a quality player get cut or traded in this case for nothing like Cooper, like the Cowboys have had to do. So I think they've taken a step back.
Yeah, it's a bad story. And I think, having Randy Gregory, who they supported in so many ways, and he fit the Cowboys culture, and then he essentially is with them, and then he turns around and says, check you later, I'm going to Denver. I mean, that's not a great story. So the Cowboys, we always talk about the salary cap as essentially being a myth. Well, it hasn't been a myth for Dallas this time around at all, and they paid the price.
The Giants make a move. They had a terrible job. They did a terrible job last year with backup quarterbacks behind Daniel Jones. So they make a move. They bring in Tyrod Taylor, who has been a steady backup for most of his career. So they get better there, but still all the eggs in that basket.
I like the offensive line moves that they made, kind of like the Jets at different positions. Mark Lewinsky can play. John Feliciano can play. Tyrod can play. The problem that they've had is with their stars. Like James Bradbury and Saquon Barkley are on the trade block, but no one seems to want them, and that's just awkward to me. Like, I don't think those two players are going to be on the Giants after the draft, but it might take until draft weekend for someone to bite.
I'd also say that, not unlike other teams, if you're Brian Daboll, it is a one-year audition for Daniel Jones because we're not going into another year after that of mid-level play. He's got to show it or they're going to move on.
Maybe I should get back on the Ty God train. Like, I always thought maybe it would have a second little run. Daboll's a nice fit.
Finally, the Commanders, the Washington football team, they have Carson Wentz there now, and hey, you want to build branding, okay? You got a brand new team name. Carson Wentz lands in Washington, and let's check out what he did to help the brand. It's for the brand.
What's up, Commanders fans? Carson Wentz here, just landed in D.C. I'm excited to get to work, excited to come in and compete, and, as we all know, excited to really go ahead and start to take command.
Hashtag take command, join the movement. I don't know if it's going to be as successful as hashtag keep bounding in Carolina, but
I think it's like hashtag let's just maybe start to take command.
It's the part of it where he goes, as you all know, like, I can't get over that part. As you all know, let's start to take command.
If we feel like it.
Maybe that's, and I'm not going to tell the social media guy down there in Washington what to do. Maybe we do another take there. We just clean up the back end of the cell there. You're trying to brand with a new franchise court.
Well, as you mentioned, though, maybe that was the second, third, fourth, fifth take, and we're not getting a lot more out of this. He's not an actor. He's not a thespian. He's a mid-range quarterback.
If that was his seventh take, I'm really worried about how he's going to do a quarterback for his third team in 3 years. All right, let's move on. Coming up next on the broadcast. Hopefully this tease goes better than the last. The AFC North, NFC North. Oh, my goodness. Davante Adams, not there. Cooper is. Let's get to it next.
Good tease.
All right. Welcome back to the broadcast. It's time to dig in on the North divisions of our league. Let's start with the AFC North and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, Mark, they believe, I don't know if they believe they've definitely found their solution at quarterback in Mitch Trubisky, but they at least found a guy to kind of transition into whatever comes next.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people have been seeing Mitch Trubisky for the past month plus in our league in a way that I don't quite understand, because my memory of him is someone who could not process what was happening on the field, made scattershot decisions, and cost the Bears more than he helped them.
These are the best highlights they can find. It's just like a bunch of 4-yard
Nice
throws.
roll out there.
It's concerning, but the Steelers, I think they think
deception.
we've got someone. Here's the thing, they went and acted quickly. They didn't get involved in Deshaun Watson. They didn't get involved in Russell Wilson. And so do we like what they did? I think this is the kind of thing that looks great now.
Boom.
And then come the games, come actual game action, you've got big problems.
Yeah, but they tell us what they think when with their wallets, right? See those two names, the additions?
Here it comes again.
Mitch Trubisky, Miles Jack. Who's making more money? Like, Miles Jack got more money, off-ball linebacker who was cut, than Mitch Trubisky.
They didn't
Trubisky
overspend,
is making the same as Tyrod and Teddy Bridgewater. He is a bridge quarterback, and they're going to be drafting a rookie. I have no doubt there's going to be a...
All right, if you draft a rookie and that excites the fan base, then this conversation's over. But if they don't for some reason, I don't care that they didn't pay him a lot of money. He still has to play quarterback for 17
Absolutely.
games.
They did sign two good offensive linemen. I think it's going to upgrade their team, including James Daniels. And I like the other moves that they've made, including the Miles Jack move.
The Bengals, the defending AFC champions, they've done what we all expected them to do. When we had Duke Tobin on the show at the Combine, we challenged the man to tell us what his plan was. Fix the offensive line. It's like, we like our offensive line. Well, guess what? I guess you don't, because Al Kappa, Tad Karras, they're both imported, and they're in talks for La'el Collins, who has been cut by the Cowboys. So they've been working hard on that position. The Ravens, meanwhile, they say, listen, we're trying to take this division back. Marcus Williams, big addition to their secondary. Zadarius Smith was supposed to be a big addition to their front seven, but he walked out of his deal.
That was a weird one. We don't know where he's going or what he's doing. He just changed his mind. It's the type of thing Mark enjoys, because the Ravens are usually such a well-run organization, and then you like seeing pie in their face.
Yeah, Zadarius Smith sort of said, I don't want to make a lot of money, actually. I think I'm going to decide not to do that. But I think Marcus Williams will fit so well into what is a loaded secondary. And I said it on our show, I think he's going to be the best free agent signing of anyone this offseason.
La'el Collins, though, if the Bengals sign him, that's 3 spots. That's another guy. Tobin's reading the 101. I put him in at number 12 when he got cut.
I like the placement. He's a good little player, big player. Mark, who's the quarterback of the Browns week 1?
Jimmy G.
All right, moving on to the NFC North. Green Bay Packers, now what? Listen, we talked about it at the top of the show, but I'm going to say it again. It wasn't working. I mean, how many playoff losses do we have to see? So Davante Adams, obviously a huge loss, but I would not be stunned if with all this cap space, they end up with a room, wide receiver room that people are going to say might be better. I'm just, mark my words.
I don't see how that's possible. I mean, Alan Lazard is coming back, we believe. Valdez-Scantling is a free agent. I mean, Lazard's their 1 and Cobb is their 2. How could this be better? Even if you did add Jarvis Landry and Odell, like, it's not going to be better.
How about Robert Woods? How about Jarvis Landry and then a first-round pick wide receiver?
Why do we think the Rams are so excited to trade Robert Woods to the one team that stands in their way on a Super Bowl journey?
I'm not saying they're excited. They're just looking for the best value for a player that's become expendable. How about Kirk Cousins? He does another deal with the Vikings. He's the greatest businessman. He's a businessman.
The very great cultural reference there.
Thank you.
With the kids. I think he is an avenue for quarterbacks to follow. And I think Lamar Jackson is the man to follow. If you can get to free agency as a quarterback, you can control your franchise and your future in a way that Aaron Rodgers can't, Tom Brady can't. Kirk Cousins has made more money than all those guys. And if Lamar can just play out these franchise tags and get to free agency like Kirk Cousins did, he could make a lot.
I mean, he's wealthier than most Central American dictators at this point, and I admire that. I think that if you're the Vikings, you looked around the landscape and said, with a new coaching staff, a new front office, we're more comfortable with Kirk Cousins for a year or two then what else is out there, or what we swing and miss for?
Can play, but he's also vaguely annoying on multiple levels. Ask Mike Zimmer. And then there's the Bears and the Lions, and it's a time, obviously, of transition for these organizations. They're kind of waiting it out. At least Jared Goff has a new wide receiver to throw to in DJ Chark.
I like what the Lions did, rewarding their guys, Charles Harris and Tracy Walker, who played pretty well for them. But you're right, it's not a lot of excitement there.
If you're the Bears, if you're Matt Eberflus, there must be like we understand this year is going to be tough for you. We're not going to fire you after one season.
I hope. He hopes.
Well,
let's move on.
I don't want that to happen to him.
We keep rolling through the broadcast. Coming up, we head down south. Going down south. Check in on the AFC and NFC teams. All 8. Christian Kirk, excuse me. Evan Ingram. We got some new faces and new places. Welcome back. Tom Petty once said, heading back down south. That's where we're going right now. Let's dig in on the AFC side of things first with the Jaguars. Mark, I know they're an easy target, especially after the embarrassment that was the Urban Meyer era, but I like what they've done here. Their roster stinks going into free agency. They've added a bunch of players. They're better, and it's just money. That's what you're supposed to do with all this cap space. Let's go.
I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. They've spent over $1 billion in free agency since 2012 and have more losses than any team in the league since 2012. So it's kind of an example that this doesn't always work.
He kind of shut you down there.
Well, no,
he didn't.
The one other
you
year.
have Trevor Lawrence.
Hold on, though. The one other year that they spent an absolute ton was the year they went to the AFC Championship. So it is about the pieces working. The thing is, when I look at Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, I think is a good player. Is he a number one? No. Is this wide receiver group better than last year's? Is it markedly better? Are they a much better team?
I don't think so, but why Mark did not shut me down there, Greg, is because you can spend $1 billion, but Blake Bortles is going to be Blake Bortles, or whoever, the other Hammeneggers that have been there for years at quarterback. Now you have a potential generational talent.
I get it.
Spend.
I like some of their signings. Engram was worth a shot. I like Foley, Fatukasi from the Jets. But when you're signing that much money, you'd like to have a Chandler Jones or a Davante Adams or an Allen Robinson, someone who's actually been a difference maker at some point. Brandon Scherf is the only one who's been a difference maker, and he hasn't had a full season in forever, and his body's breaking down. So they're not signing like A players; they're signing a lot of B players and hoping that.
We don't know
Here's
for
where
sure
Dan
his body's
just runs
breaking
off
down.
Set. He just
I mean,
runs
he
off
hasn't played.
No, I mean-
he hasn't made it through a season without missing 4 or 5 games in about 5
They
years.
have an adult there, and Doug Peterson. I think they're going to be a lot better. Mark my words. The Colts still don't have a quarterback, by the way, so that's something to keep an eye on. They did get Yannick Ngakoue in a trade with Vegas, sending Rock Ya-Sin back to Nevada. So what do you think about the Colts?
That's such a great fit. Ngakoue is kind of like Gus Bradley's Binky. You know, he had him in Jacksonville, did
So
well.
you could say Binky, but I can't say Heine.
I
That's
don't
the
know.
rules.
I
Oh,
don't know.
that's-
Double standard.
There are no rules
Double
on this
standard.
show. I'd like the 1-for-1 trade. We need more of that in the NFL. Just like, I'm going to bet you my player versus your player. Ya-Sin versus Ngakoue.
We see it all over the league. It's coordinator wanting to bring like his foundational piece. I think with the quarterback thing, it's like they're in a fix, but they walked into a fix when they decided we'll almost take nobody over Carson Wentz. We would have a ghost play quarterback over Carson Wentz.
That's who you got, Washington. That's who's taking command. Like, hey, we don't even have a quarterback, but just here you go.
We're starting to take command. The Titans a little bit quiet on their front. Harold Landry gets big money. Julio Jones cut, so that did not work out. Not a good trade, but you understand the intent there. The Texans, business as usual, a lot of short-term deals, and Larry Tunsil not going anywhere. Let's move to the NFC South. The Bucs, obviously the huge news last weekend, Tom Brady coming out of retirement, and Chris Godwin gets a big-time deal. O.J. Howard goes to Buffalo. Ali Marpet retired. Carlton Davis back. The team is locked and loaded to be a contender, I think.
The Carlton Davis contract was one of the best values, I thought, in all of free agency. It gave them more money to give to Chris Godwin and for Russell Gage, who I think was a really great signing because he could do a lot of the things Godwin does. Godwin's coming back from a torn ACL. The more receivers, the better. And, you know, Tom Brady's the best free agent signing you could have.
Tom Brady, who called up Russell Gage and said, I love your tape, come join this adventure. And the answer, of course, is yes. It's Tom Brady sitting at the motherboard saying,
the 101.
I want my friend Shaq Mason. Bang, Shaq Mason's there. So it's like, you know, Tom Brady's return changed everything because the Bucs would have been a flaming disaster on some level had you had Blaine Gabbert at the wheel.
You got Logan Ryan back too. They've had a nice little offseason.
They're doing a nice job. Also, the Carolina Panthers in NFC South news. Are they going to be stuck with Sam Darnold again? Is that how this ends? They are in a really bad spot at quarterback compared to other teams in the league.
We keep hearing how like they are desperate and they'll move heaven and earth to like get the quarterback. They're desperate to win, and here they are with Sam Darnold, and maybe they'll give up too many picks for Baker Mayfield. I feel like they're a team that could do that.
I mean, they're paying Sam Darnold like they're committed to him, but they can't be based on what they saw a year ago. Maybe like Gardner Minshew winds up as their starter.
My concern about Carolina is that I don't know if the infrastructure is right there. There's a report out there that Deshaun Watson said no thanks because they weren't looking to give him guaranteed years after, I think, year 2. It's like, man, anybody that trades Deshaun, it's going to be it's going to be some tough years early on because you're going to have no draft assets and not a great roster. So it's just like missing the point. I don't know what's going on around there. Saints seem like they're in Deshaun or bust mode. And the Falcons are also obviously in the waiting game, as we talked about. So the entire division is kind of in this hold mode right now.
It's been a good offseason for the Bucs, just watching the rest of the NFC South kind of fumble around.
That's true. All right, let's move on. Before we say goodbye, we share our winners and losers of Week 1 of the new league year. Happy New Year, Mark Sessler. Any resolutions?
None. I don't want to accomplish anything.
Well, you said you're quitting the Browns.
That's one.
Not true, though. Welcome back to the broadcast. Before we say goodbye, winners and losers. Greg, you're a big winner. Get going, buddy.
Thank you. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they watch the rest of their division debase themselves in this Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They brought back the greatest free agent signing of all time, Tom Brady. The whole league could have him a couple years ago. Then they trade for Shaq Mason. You give up a 5th-round pick. I said I like the Russell Gage move, all the players they brought back. What a great offseason for them. Has not been a good one, though, for Baker Mayfield. I'm going to give Baker Mayfield my loser of the week because that statement he sent out, that passive-aggressive statement, was kind of the reason, in a nutshell, I think that the teams want to move off from him. Like, that's not leadership. That's just lame. Anyone reading that statement is thinking, this dude is phony. I don't want to play with this dude.
Ouch. Well, also, if he would have played better, they would have dealt
That
with
would have helped.
Okay, Mark, how about you?
Well, I mean, talking about football in Ohio, how much have things changed in 1 year? Because if you're the Bengals, you're my winner. You had one obvious, overt to-do this offseason. It was don't put Joe Burrow back in a scenario where he's getting sacked more than any quarterback in the league. They fortified the offensive line. It's like what last year's Chiefs did. I like the direction. My loser. Give me a break with the Seahawks. First of all, here's what annoys me. We're in this spin cycle where you're trying to sell us Drew Lock. Well, we loved Drew Lock before the draft. Like, his tape when he was a rookie was really pristine. I mean, it is going to be a long offseason of that kind of wind, and I'm not buying a word of it. They're in a hill of trouble if they don't get a better quarterback.
All right. My winner, listen, whoever ends up with Deshaun Watson will be a winner on some level because you're going to have this transformational talent, a quarterback that is going to make your franchise better. Maybe not immediately, but in the long run, you have a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. The loser is all these teams that have been, Greg, you used the word shameless. I like that. Cleveland, Carolina, New Orleans, Atlanta, who just rolled out the red carpet for this guy. All that talk of they want to meet face-to-face for hard questions no, it was to kiss his butt and try to get him on your team. And it's just kind of a tough thing to follow as a football fan. But that's not everything with the NFL. We had a great week. It was fun. Watch us next week on the broadcast and follow the podcast. Have a nice weekend.